Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to explore what it truly means to log in to your life's purpose. And we're going to do this by digging into one of the absolute best pieces of modern wisdom we've got, Steve Jobs' 2005 Stanford commencement address. So let's just dive right in, because the parallels between how we connect to the digital world and how we connect to our own lives are actually pretty fascinating. Think about something we do every single day. We sign into an account. It asks for your email, maybe your phone number, gives you a forgot password link. It's super efficient, sure, but undeniably a little sterile. Now contrast that with what Steve Jobs famously called Google in paperback form. Back in the late 1960s, a guy named Stuart Brand created the Whole Earth catalog down in Menlo Park. Long before anyone had a personal computer, this entire catalog was physically brought to life using typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was this idealistic, beautiful thing, just absolutely overflowing with neat tools and great notions. And the sheer scale of today's digital world is wild. When you sign in today, you're hit with dozens of global languages, right? From Afrikaans to isiZulu to Samurai. The scale is massive. But here's the kicker. While the medium has completely transformed since the 1970s, our fundamental human need for curiosity, for searching, and for logging into a wider world of ideas, that hasn't changed one bit. To figure out how to navigate that world, we're going to follow the exact roadmap Jobs laid out in his address. Just 3 self-contained stories from his life: connecting the dots, love and loss, and facing death. That's the whole agenda. Let's kick things off with story number 1, connecting the dots. Life's events usually feel totally chaotic in the moment. So let's track just how unpredictable his path really was. Starting right at birth, he was unexpectedly adopted by working-class parents. His biological mother, a young grad student, actually refused to sign the papers at first because his new parents didn't have college degrees. They literally had to promise he would go to college. Fast forward 17 years, he keeps that promise, but naively picks Reed College, a school almost as expensive as Stanford. He's burning through all his parents' savings, can't see the value in it, and after just 6 months, he drops out. For the next 18 months, things are pretty rough. He's sleeping on the floor in friends' rooms, returning Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits just to buy food, getting a free meal once a week at the Hare Krishna temple. But because he dropped out of the required stuff, he could drop in on what actually interested him, like a calligraphy class. He learns all about serif and sans serif typefaces, the varying space between letters, stuff with absolutely zero practical application at the time. Until 10 years later. They're designing the first Macintosh computer, and it all comes rushing back. He designed that gorgeous, historically rich typography right into the Mac. Which leads to this absolutely essential piece of advice. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. Think about it. If he hadn't dropped out, he never would have dropped in on that calligraphy class. The Mac wouldn't have had multiple typefaces, and since Windows famously just copied the Mac, no personal computer would have them. The takeaway here? You have to trust that your current dots will somehow connect in your future. You've got to trust your gut. Destiny, karma, whatever it is, to give you the confidence to follow your heart right off the well-worn path. Okay, moving right along to story number 2, love and loss. This is all about what happens when you're lucky enough to find what you love early in life, and then you just abruptly lose the whole shebang. $2 billion. That's the staggering scale Apple had reached in just 10 years. They went from 2 guys in a garage to a company with over 4,000 employees. They had just released their finest creation, the Macintosh. Jobs had just turned 30, and then he got fired from the very company he founded. He had a falling out with a talented executive he'd hired. The board sided with the executive, and just like that, at 30 years old, he was very publicly out. So how on earth do you bounce back from that? Well, at first, he was devastated. He genuinely felt like he dropped the baton that previous entrepreneurs had passed to him. He even met with Silicon Valley legends David Packard and Bob Noyce to apologize for screwing up so badly. But as he thought about packing up and running away, it hit him. He had been rejected, sure, but he was still totally in love with what he did. So he enters one of the most creatively rich periods of his life. He starts a company called Next. He starts another one called Pixar, which, goes on to make Toy Story, the world's first computer-animated feature film. And he meets the amazing woman who becomes his wife. And then, the ultimate plot twist. Apple actually buys Next. Jobs returns, bringing the exact technology that would spark Apple's entire modern renaissance. He beautifully summarized that whole crazy era by saying, the heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Getting fired was awful-tasting medicine, but as he put it, the patient absolutely needed it. Sometimes life is going to hit you in the head with a brick. The only thing that will keep you going is loving what you do. So if you haven't found it yet, keep looking. don't settle. That brings us to our third and final story, facing death. I know, it sounds a little somber, but this is honestly the most uplifting, practical tool in this entire explainer. Ask yourself this exact mirror test question. If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? Jobs actually asked himself this in the mirror every single morning for 33 years. Whenever the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew it was time to change something. Remembering that you'll be dead soon is profoundly powerful. Why? Because it instantly strips away all those external expectations, all that pride, all that fear of embarrassment or failure. You're already naked. There's literally no reason not to follow your heart. And this wasn't just a philosophical thought experiment for him. About a year before he gave this speech, he had a scan at 7:30 in the morning that showed a tumor on his pancreas. The doctors told him it was an incurable type of cancer. Their advice? Get your affairs in order, which, by the way, is doctor code for prepare to die in 3 to 6 months. Imagine trying to tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months, saying your goodbyes. He lived with that absolute terrifying certainty all day. But later that evening, they did a biopsy. They stuck an endoscope down his throat and got some cells from the tumor. When the doctors finally looked under the microscope, they actually started crying because it turned out to be a very rare but completely curable form of pancreatic cancer. He had the surgery and he was fine. Surviving that gave him a profoundly literal understanding of death. It's the destination we all share, nobody escapes it, and honestly, that's exactly as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's ultimate change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, you're the new, but eventually you'll become the old and be cleared away. Your time is strictly limited, so you really can't waste it living someone else's life or being trapped by dogma, which is really just living out the results of other people's thinking. Which brings us right to our final takeaway. Stay hungry, stay foolish. We started off talking about that 1960s paperback Google, the Whole Earth catalog. Well, when Stuart Brand and his team decided the catalog had run its course in the mid-70s, they put out one final issue. On the back cover was a photograph of an early morning country road. It's exactly the kind of dusty, open road you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were young, adventurous, and just staring out into the vast, exciting unknown of your own future. Printed right beneath that road was their farewell message. As they signed off for the very last time, they wrote, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It's this beautiful wish for continuous curiosity and the raw courage to take risks. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. The next time you face a major crossroad in your own life, your very own personal sign-in moment, how will you choose to stay hungry and stay foolish?